a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Berry Stapp Earp was an American Old West gambler, a deputy sheriff in Pima County, and deputy town marshal in Tombstone, Arizona Territory, who took part in the gunfight at the OK Corral, during which Lawman killed 3 outlaw Cochise County Cowboys. He is often mistakenly regarded as the central figure in the shootout in Tombstone, although his brother Virgil was Tombstone City Marshal and Deputy U.S. Marshal that day, and had far more experience as a sheriff, constable, marshal, and soldier in combat. Earp lived a restless life. He was at different times a constable, city policeman, county sheriff, deputy U.S. Marshal, teamster, buffalo hunter, bouncer, saloon-keeper, gambler, brothel keeper, miner, and boxing referee. Earp spent his early life in Pella, Iowa. In 1870, he married his first wife, Urilla Sutherland Earp, who contracted typhoid fever and died shortly before their first child was to be born. They lived in Lamar, Missouri, at the time. Urilla is buried in Milf, Missouri, near Lamar. During the next 2 years, Earp was arrested for stealing a horse, escaped from jail, was sued twice, and was arrested and fined 3 times in 1872 for keeping and being found in a house of ill fame. His third arrest was subject of a lengthy account in the Daily Transcript, which referred to him as an old offender, and nicknamed him the Peoria Bummer, another name for loafer or tramp. By 1874, he arrived in the boomtown of Wichita, Kansas, where his brother had opened a brothel. On April 21, 1875, Earp was appointed to the Wichita police force and developed a solid reputation as a lawman. On April 2, 1876, his boss, City Marshal Michael Marr, was running for office when an opponent said some things about his brothers that Earp took offense to. He confronted and beat the man in a fistfight. Earp was fined $30 and dismissed from the Wichita force. Earp immediately left Wichita, following his brother James, to Dodge City, Kansas, where he became an assistant city marshal. In winter 1878, he went to Texas to track down an outlaw and met John Doc Holliday, whom Earp later credited with saving his life. Earp moved constantly throughout his life from one boomtown to another. He left Dodge City in 1879 and moved with his brothers, James and Virgil, to Tombstone, where a silver boom was underway. There, the Earps clashed with a loose federation of outlaws known as the Cowboys. Wyatt, Virgil, and their younger brother Morgan held various law enforcement positions that put them in conflict with Tom and Frank McClory, and Ike, and Billy Clanton, who threatened on several occasions to kill the Earps. The conflict escalated over the next year, culminating on October 26, 1881, in the gunfight at the OK Corral, in which the Earps and Holliday killed 3 of the Cowboys. In the next 5 months, Virgil was ambushed and maimed, and Morgan was assassinated. Pursuing a vendetta, Wyatt, his brother Warren Earp, Holliday, and others formed a federal posse which killed 3 of the Cowboys whom they thought responsible. Wyatt was never wounded in any of the gunfights in which he took part, unlike his brothers Virgil and Morgan, or his friend Doc Holliday, which only added to his mystique after his death. Earp was a lifelong gambler and was always looking for a quick way to make money. After leaving Tombstone, Earp went to San Francisco, where he reunited with Josephine Earp. She became his common-law wife. They joined a gold rush to Eagle City, Idaho, where they owned mining interests and a saloon. They left there to race horses and open a saloon during a real estate boom in San Diego, California. Back in San Francisco, Wyatt raced horses again, but his reputation suffered irreparably when he refereed the Fitzsimmons-Sharkey boxing match and called a foul that led many to believe that he fixed the fight. They moved briefly to Yuma, Arizona, before joining the Nome Gold Rush in 1899. In partnership with Charlie Hoxie, they opened a 2-story saloon called the Dexter and made an estimated $80,000. Returning to the lower 48, they opened another saloon in Tonopah, Nevada, the site of a new gold find. Around 1911, Earp began working several mining claims in Vidal, California, retiring in the hot summers with Josephine to Los Angeles. Earp made friends among early Western actors in Hollywood, and tried to get his story told. He was portrayed in film only once before he died, and very briefly, in the 1923 film Wild Bill Hickok. Earp died on January 13, 1929. He was known as a Western lawman, gunfighter, and boxing referee. He had a notorious reputation for both his handling of the Fitzsimmons-Sharkey fight and his role in the OK Corral gunfight. This only began to change after his death, when the extremely flattering biography WYATT EARP, Frontier Marshal, was published in 1931. It became a bestseller and created his reputation as a fearless lawman. Since then, Earp has been the subject of, and model for, numerous films, television shows, biographies, and works of fiction that have increased his notoriety. Long after his death, he has many devoted detractors and admirers. Earp's modern-day reputation is that of the Old West's toughest and deadliest gunman of his day. Early life. Wyatt Berry Stapp Earp was born on March 19, 1848, the fourth child of Nicholas Porter Earp and his second wife, Virginia Ann Cooksey. He was named after his father's commanding officer in the Mexican-American War, Captain Wyatt Berry Stapp, of the 2nd Company Illinois Mounted Volunteers. Some evidence supports Wyatt Earp's birthplace as 406 South 3rd Street in Monmouth, Illinois, though the street address is disputed by Monmouth College professor and historian William Urban. Wyatt had 7 siblings: James, Virgil, Martha, Morgan, Baxter Warren, Virginia, and Adelia, as well as an elder half-brother from his father's first marriage, Newton. In March 1849, or in early 1850, Nicholas Earp joined about 100 other people in a plan to relocate to San Bernardino County, California, where he intended to buy farmland. Just 150 miles west of Monmouth on the journey, their daughter Martha became ill. The family stopped, and Nicholas bought a new 160-acre farm 7 miles northeast of Pella, Iowa. Martha died there on May 26, 1856. Nicholas and Virginia Earp's last child, Adelia, was born in June 1861 in Pella. Newton, James, and Virgil joined the Union Army on November 11, 1861. Their father was busy recruiting and drilling local companies, so Wyatt and his 2 younger brothers, Morgan and Warren, were left in charge of tending 80 acres of corn. Wyatt was only 13 years old, too young to enlist, but he tried on several occasions to run away and join the army. Each time, his father found him and brought him home. James was severely wounded in Fredericktown, Missouri, and returned home in summer 1863. Newton and Virgil fought several battles in the East and later followed the family to California. On May 12, 1864, Nicholas Earp organized a wagon train and headed to San Bernardino, California, arriving on December 17, 1864. By late summer 1865, Virgil found work as a driver for Phineas Banning's stagecoach line in California's Imperial Valley, and 16-year-old Wyatt assisted. In spring 1866, Wyatt became a teamster, transporting cargo for Chris Taylor. From 1866 to 1868, he drove cargo over the 720 miles wagon road from Wilmington, through San Bernardino, then Las Vegas, Nevada, to Salt Lake City, Utah Territory. In spring 1868, Earp was hired to transport supplies needed to build the Union Pacific Railroad. He learned gambling and boxing while working on the railhead in the Wyoming Territory. Earp developed a reputation officiating boxing matches, and refereed a fight in front of 3,000 spectators between John Chansey and Mike Donovan on July 4, 1869, in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Lawman and marriage. In the spring of 1868, the Earps moved east again to Lamar, Missouri, where Wyatt's father Nicholas became the local constable. Wyatt rejoined the family the next year. Nicholas resigned as constable on November 17, 1869, to become the justice of the peace, and Wyatt was appointed constable in his place. In late 1869, Earp courted 20-year-old Urilla Sutherland, the daughter of William and Pamela Sutherland, who operated the Exchange Hotel in Lamar. They were married by his father Nicholas in Lamar on January 10, 1870, and in August 1870, Wyatt bought a lot on the outskirts of town for $50, where he built a house. Urilla was pregnant and about to deliver their first child when she suddenly died from typhoid fever. In November, Earp sold the lot and a house on it for $75. Hoping to keep the office to which he had been appointed, he ran against his elder half-brother Newton for the office of constable. The Earps may have hoped to keep the job in the family one way or another. Wyatt won by 137 votes to Newton's 108. but their father Nicholas lost the election for Justice of the Peace in a very close four-way race. Lawsuits and charges. After Urilla's death, Wyatt went through a downward spiral and had a series of legal problems. On March 14, 1871, Barton County filed a lawsuit against Earp and his sureties. Earp was in charge of collecting license fees for Lamar, which funded local schools, and he was accused of failing to turn in the fees. On March 31, James Cromwell filed a lawsuit against Earp, alleging that Earp had falsified court documents about the amount of money collected from Cromwell to satisfy a judgment. To make up the difference between what Earp turned in and Cromwell owed, the court seized Cromwell's mowing machine and sold it for $38. Cromwell's suit claimed that Earp owed him $75, the estimated value of the machine. On March 28, 1871, Earp, Edward Kennedy, and John Shone were charged with stealing 2 horses, each of the value of $100, from William Keyes while in the Indian country. On April 6, Deputy United States Marshal J.G. Owens arrested Earp for the horse theft. Commissioner James Churchill arraigned Earp on April 14 and set bail at $500. On May 15, an indictment was issued against Earp, Kennedy, and Shone. Anna Shone, John Shone's wife, claimed that Earp and Kennedy got her husband drunk and then threatened his life to persuade him to help. On June 5, Edward Kennedy was acquitted while the case against Earp and John Shone remained. Earp did not wait for the trial. He climbed out through the roof of his jail and headed for Peoria, Illinois. Arrests in Peoria. Years afterward, Wyatt's biographer Stuart N. Lake wrote that Wyatt was hunting buffalo during the winter of 1871-1872. But Earp was arrested 3 times during 1872 in the area around Peoria, Illinois for activity related to a brothel. Local constables in Peoria, Illinois, likely considered Earp to be a pimp. Earp was listed in the Peoria City Directory during 1872 as a resident in the home of Jane Haspel. In February 1872, Peoria police raided her home and arrested 4 women and 3 men, Wyatt and Morgan Earp, and George Randall. The men were charged with keeping and being found in a house of ill fame. They were later fined $20 plus costs for the criminal infraction. Earp was arrested for the same crime on May 11, and in September the Peoria Daily National Democrat reported that Earp had been arrested once more on September 10, 1872. This time he was aboard a floating brothel he owned named the Beardstown Gunboat. Arrested with him was a woman named Sally Heckle, who called herself Wyatt Earp's wife. By calling Earp the Peoria Bummer, the newspaper was including him in a class of contemptible loafers who impose on hard-working citizens, a beggar, and worse than tramps. They were men of poor character who were chronic lawbreakers. Wichita, Kansas. Wyatt and Sally moved to the growing cow town of Wichita in early 1874. Local arrest records show that Sally Earp operated a brothel with Nellie Bessie Ketchum, the wife of his brother James, from early 1874 to the middle of 1876. Wyatt may have been a pimp, but historian Robert Gary L. Roberts believes he more likely was an enforcer, or a bouncer for the brothel. He possibly hunted buffalo during 1873-74 before he went to Wichita. When the Kansas state census was completed in June 1875, Sally was no longer living with Wyatt, James, and Bessie. Wichita was a railroad terminal and a destination for cattle drives from Texas. Like other frontier railroad terminals, when the cowboys accompanying the cattle drives arrived, the town was filled with drunken, armed cowboys celebrating the end of their long journey. Lawmen were kept busy. When the cattle drives ended, and the cowboys left, Earp searched for something else to do. The Wichita City Eagle reported on October 29, 1874 that he had helped an off-duty police officer find thieves who had stolen a man's wagon. Earp officially joined the Wichita Marshal's office on April 21, 1875, after the election of Mike Marr as city marshal, making $100 per month. He also dealt faro at the Long Branch Saloon. In late 1875, the Wichita Beacon newspaper published this story. Earp was embarrassed on January 9, 1876, when he was sitting with friends in the back room of the Custom House Saloon when his loaded single-action revolver fell out of his holster. It discharged when the hammer hit the floor. The ball passed through his coat, struck the north wall, then glanced off, and passed out through the ceiling. Wyatt was so red-faced by the incident that years later, He persuaded biographer Stuart Lake to omit it from his book WYATT EARP, Frontier Marshal. Wyatt's stint as WYATT or deputy came to a sudden end on April 2, 1876, when Earp took too active an interest in the city marshal's election. According to news accounts, former Marshal Bill Smith accused Wyatt of using his office to help hire his brothers as lawmen. Wyatt got into a fistfight with Smith and beat him. Lamar was forced to fire Earp and arrest him for disturbing the peace, which ended a tour of duty that the papers called otherwise unexceptionable. Lamar won the election, but the city council was split evenly on rehiring Earp. His brother James opened a brothel in Dodge City, and Wyatt left Wichita to join him. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?